The High Kingdom of Yimmu-Audal is the oldest state of Stoneworks, located in the center of Rathnir. With its comprehensive history and massive cultural influence, the nation greatly stands in its test against time and continues to serve against its enemies and with its allies. In this video, we shall go deep into the history of the nation Yimmu-Audal. With all this, the national identity of Yimmu-Audal has proved to be unyielding, outliving, and also it has its own suffering during its lifetime. So, we need to showcase the lore! The original meaning of Yimmu-Audal was meant as the many islands within its own language from the Jagdasian island of Shiraak. The nation's name became ironically disassociated with its island history following its migration to Rathnir. Today, Yimmu-Audal resides on the mainland continent, barring many towns such as Talor, Mareda, and Baronos in the counties of Koltmer and Astelin. The origins of Yimmu-Audal date back to the quaint island off the Jagdasian spawn, which was settled by the player's story studio, following his entry into the Jagdasian realm. Written in a triangular-shaped language script, the words Shiraak were discovered by Story Studio after an examination of a birch tree log found on the island. With the help of hired linguistic experts, this player was able to decipher the code and find the words that named the first player's settlement on the landmass since the disappearance of its native inhabitants. Using the language found on the birch tree, now known as Audalad, Story Studio created Yimmu-Audal. Fuck me, this language. This is stupid. Story Studio created Yimmu-Audal's mysterious model, which is featured on its national flag. Shortly following the creation of Shiraak, the now legal Story Studio would attract new settlers to the island. Many of these first players being Count of Gabel, Ultra Brotnik 69, followed by a Midnight Dreary, Fular Zane, Cosmic Orari, Crazy Chaos Caleb, Dodo 21, Robin, and Bestiams. A lighthouse was constructed near the island, standing as a beacon to further attract visitors to help boost the populace of the settlement. This led to the acclaimed rapid population growth in Shiraak and, later on, in Yimmu-Audal. After the foundation of Reunification, an exact replica of the original Jagdasian building was constructed in the city. Most would agree, however, that the true reason for the exponential growth of Yimmu-Audal would be the arrival of Story Studio's canonical brother, Crazy Chaos Caleb, who would be named Chief Diplomat by Lugal Story Studio. It is said that shortly after the arrival of his brother, Story Studio would be visited by Hukar Dezum Atai Dasher, also known as the Sharudi Faith. According to the Audalad mythology, it was Hukar which had directly informed Story Studio that he must establish an island empire across the seas and lands, spreading the culture of Shiraak. Since that point onward, Hukar has been considered the deity of the Audalad dynasty and the Yimmu-Audal, with the undying, despite anything willpower of the people connected to its divine intervention. After the appointment of Caleb as the chief diplomat, the settlement of Shiraak began to expand quickly. This involved establishing many colonies on the nearby islands, the first buildings being many of fisheries, such as the one owned by Bestiams, and then further on, city settlements such as Bishara Shurud, Elnaun Ekundular, and Nirgasad. With the help of the two founders, the nation of Yimmu-Audal was declared, the name meaning the many islands. Soon, with the utilization of clever diplomacy, surrounding settlements were invited to join the nation under the banner of Yimmu-Audal, and the idea of a unified Jagdasian spawn ocean was created. Altogether, this early state functions similarly to the alliance of city-states, with the governance of the Jagdasian Yimmu-Audal being highly decentralized. This led to both the cities paying no taxes to the actual government, and the nation practicing a policy of absolute freedom in their religious expression. On August 17, 2020, Story Studio was crowned the first emperor of Yimmu-Audal with Crazy Chaos as a side chief diplomat. Public event garnered server-wide attention with such figures such as Gonf and Herb Dashwell present. During his reign, Story Studio invented the Imperial Guard of Yimmu-Audal, led by High Lord Bubu, solving several diplomatic disputes and incidents, constructing numerous government projects, and expanding the territories of the Empire through exclusive peaceful means was his way to go. On August 30th, it saw the coronation of Blue Marble, the second emperor, and his chief diplomat, Arbiter, which saw even more attendance than that of Story Studio. The Empire saw stable expansion under his reign, until the events of September 13th, which saw the Jagdasian collapse by the world becoming corrupted. After 2 weeks of inactivity, the world of Rathnir was launched. The Wrathnerian imperial era lasted during the reign of emperors Blue Marble and Arbiter. It was occurred following the Jagdasian collapse, where several Adulade, including the Emperor Blue Marble, migrated to the world Rathnir to re-establish their lost nation. The newly arrived migrants established their capital in the deserts of Alteniquia, near the center of the world, calling it Urnurak, meaning New Hill, and gradually expanded their territorial holdings during this time. Also during this time, the bandit, the real J2, would be appointed as supreme commander of the Audulad military, which would lead to the victory in the Escherian-Audulad War. Yimmu-Audal alleged that during the poaching of Turtalonia, Escherian forces had been taking netherite from the city while looting, and demanded that it had been returned.
Strike that. Reverse it.
Escherian replied they had done no such thing, and had done not the process of the netherite in question. The forces of Yimmu-Audal began going towards that city in an attempt to take back what was rightfully theirs, and meant as reparations for the Turtalonians. The war, however, would result in the long-standing tensions with the so-called Empire of the East. This led to the war taking place during the Battle of Schloss Falkenstein, and going into a Yimmu-Audal victory. In the last weeks of Blue Marble's reign, the chief diplomat Arbiter was considered the de facto emperor. This changed during the last Bastion coronation, where Arbiter formally took the throne alongside chief diplomat Dexog. The Emperor Arbiter, however, only would remain largely inactive, which served as a major problem for the nation. During his time, the Empire established decentralized colonies of Ardat, Mosul, and Utumare-Atulad, both of which would become independent under his reign. Firstly, Ardat would negotiate independence with Yimmu-Audal, seeing favorable economic reasons. However, Utumare would declare independence from Yimmu-Audal to become the Grand Republic of Lumaire. The Emperor Arbiter, however, did not realize the colony existed, and was so confused during the diplomatic exchange.
Hey! Fuck your mama, asshole!
The fuck you doing here, nigga?
Okay, this is not
Identify yourself. Who the fuck are you?
To where the Lumaire had denounced the The period of Yimmu-Audal Ardatia began with the coronation of the Empress Dalatra Moslia and the reunification with Ardat. The states of Yimmu-Audal and Ardat were combined into the Yimmu-Audal Ardatia under the now Khalifa Empress Dalatra. While Taylor was ruled by the king of Ghastly Bespoke, he would still function as a vassal under Yimmu-Audal. Yimmu-Audal began with a rough start. Following celebrations, speeches, and gifts at the coronation of the Empress, the former chief diplomat Dexog and the mercenary viewed Marquis demonstratively killed everyone present in the room.
We are tonight's entertainment.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
According to Dexog, the killings were intended as a funny, to signify the then-planned desire of Dexog to leave Rathnir and conquer to the modern world, and were conducted with keep inventory set true.
Wow, guys, real funny! Now tell me, which one of you motherfuckers put uranium-235 in my...
However, the event, which became known as the Red Coronation, was used by enemies of Yimmu-Audal as misinformation to degrade Dalatra's rightful appointment to the throne, which led to the Dalatran Civil War. Dalatra would then be accused of mismanagement, overly personal foreign policy, incompetence, promiscuity, and other forms of misconduct aimed at the questioning of her legitimacy. Neither did the 2-week ban which Dalatra faced due to the shady conduct at the casino of Ardat Mosul help her reputation anyway. It was then during this period, prior to his first departure, that Yimmu-Audal's founder Story Studio was designated the title of Grand Vizier. As Vizier, Story Studio managed much of the Empire's administration as well as the espionage operations. Many of these operations were focused on Istria due to the continued hostilities between the two nations. This resulted in many times of raiding, rebellions, and the widespread slandering of both Story Studio and Psychos T. This culminated in failed attempts from both sides to replace the other one's leadership and set the stage for the Trillium War. In another video, the Trillium War will be talked about.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
But what can be explained shortly and sweetly is that a guy from the Drunken Clan became king and decided losing was an excellent tactic that must be used on every fucking battlefield under Istrian occupation. The few people that remained in Yimmu-Audal, along with Psychos T, would appoint Grazius as the Adulat king and the real OJOJ as chief diplomat. These two, along with Ghastly Bespoke, would begin planning on how to become an independent sovereign nation once again, especially after seeing that the Trillium had just been recently dissolved. A large issue with this plan was that Bardonia already had a plan to install Zu as the Adulat territory's leader, as it was one of the terms of the First Coalition War. However, Al-Dulade and the Istrians resisted this, which would result in the looting of Rock, where Grazius came with no weapons but words. He agreed to implement the Bardonians' requests in hopes of creating a conflict between Istria and Bardonia over who ruled the territory of Yimmu-Audal. Although Grazius had agreed to the Bardonian requests of installing Zu as the Al-Dulad throne, he never actually went through with this, causing Zu to get impatient.
How long is this going to take?
Eventually, Zu would give up on ruling the Al-Dulad territory, meaning that Yimmu-Audal was now under Istrian occupation. Although this meant that he would not be able to turn the former Trillium against itself, it did mean that they were one step closer to becoming free. The Istrian-occupied Yimmu-Audal was now back, only having Grazius and the real OJOJ as the territory leaders. Grazius, the real OJOJ, and Ghastly Bespoke would once again start planning on how to become independent. In the middle of their planning, Star 67, a high-ranking member of the Sterling Crownlands, offered to liberate Yimmu-Audal with Bardonian help. Bardonia was willing to help liberate Yimmu-Audal due to the fact that a coup d'etat was launched within Bardonia, getting rid of its old senators and replacing them with new ones. The Crownlands in Bardonia gave Psychos T an ultimatum, however: liberate Yimmu-Audal and Theoknos or face war. Not wanting a war that would destroy the nation, Psychos T ignored these terms. Shortly afterwards, the Empire would collapse following the Istrian ascension, returning Yimmu-Audal to its independence. Even though it did get its independence back, Yimmu-Audal was pretty much down to only 3 people: Grazius, the real OJOJ, and Ghastly Bespoke. These 3 would take on the titles of Emperor, Chief Diplomat, and Supreme Engineer respectively. These 3 would then proceed to have talks with the recently formed Azurian Syndicate about possibly forming a union of some sort. Although the Al-Dulad rulers agreed to be under the protection of the Azurian Syndicate and vice versa, nothing ever became official due to the complications of how this would look on the map. Yimmu-Audal and the Azurian Syndicate had become agreed at this point to blend their colors of the border, but the map maker at the time, Azthaz, would not be able to do this.
Professionals have standards.
Although nothing came out of the talks with the Azurian Syndicate, the leader of Theoknos, Lethal Muffin, started talking about forming a union with Yimmu-Audal in order to restore the former nation to its fullest. At first, Grazius declined, saying that we are far too different for anything like that to work. But after discussing the possible benefits with OJOJ and Bespoke,
Now do what it says.
they decided that they should plan a meeting with the nation and the Azurian Syndicate to form one union, something that would be about the size of the old Al-Dulad Empire. Once this meeting was planned, however, the former founder of Yimmu-Audal, Story Studio, once again returned back.
What's up with it, motherfucker?
Son of a Protestant whore!
The February 28th Reunification Summit at Rathnir saw the former western territories of Yimmu-Audal, Ardatia, and Theoknos merged with the post-occupation state of the Renaissance Yimmu-Audal. The Renaissance Yimmu-Audal was declared after the return of the former Emperor's Story Studio and Harbiter, who reorganized the ancient but declining state into something tremendously prosperous and efficient. The newly united government of Theos Esculo adopted institutions from both states. borrowing the feudalism of Theoknos and the Audal dynasty diarchy from Yimmu-Audal. Unlike the prior incarnations of Yimmu-Audal, what became quickly known as TE was a deeply religious and orthodox theocist state. Through peaceful means and negotiations, this kingdom greatly expanded its territorial boundaries. The nation saw participation in relatively few military conflicts as well. Theosescudal's complex feudal and clerical system was initially ruled by the first nominus Lugal, Story Studio, and the patriarch Lethal Muffin. Following the ratification of the second constitution of this nation, however, the clergy lost most of their powers. Eventually, the Ningal mystic Audulad removed theism as a state religion altogether and installed the modern Urdusad system of religious representation, which went back to the ways of religious freedom in the name of Yimmu-Audal. A brief era following this revelation was to also return to the name of Yimmu-Audal as it existed currently under another kingdom. During this time, the nation partook in the Allium Coalition War, past prominent religious forms, acquired the Archduchy of Storia, and helped create the Empire of Aldorver in the Treaty of Altequian Pact. This is the present period following the 1-year anniversary of the Yimmu-Audal on August 14th, 2021, as this video is currently made as of April of 2023, where the Audulad held the coronation of herself as Empress of Yimmu-Audal. The coronation took place in the newly constructed Utal Lugalad, located in Urnua Rock, and was attended by many venerable guests, primarily the citizens of the said town. Shortly after, the present neo-imperial flag was adopted. After the short-lived union of Solia-Audul with its neighbor of Sharia, the empire came to an end. Following the end of the Brothers' War and the dissolution of Solia-Audul, Yimmu-Audal united with the Empire of Aldivor, forming the Empire of Astilia. Due to the collapse of Astilia, the continent of Altequiquia was in disarray. However, the kingdom of Yimmu-Audal, the kingdom of Pelor, and the Archonate of Theoknis and the Duchy of Anisfier joined together into the new kingdom of Yimmu-Audal to facilitate its transition and protect the re-emerging nation. The new High Kingdom of Yimmu-Audal becoming a protectorate of the Imperium under High King Yazov. Thank you for reaching the end of this video. So, as I stated in the last announcement, basically, I'm going to no longer make any more of these documentaries due to the fact of how time-consuming and also how limited I am in terms of making it. As stated, I am a one-man show that has others doing some work, but I have no team. I'm just trying to get by on this. So, what I've decided to do is that I will go to making memes, videos, music videos, and maybe occasionally drop something, but for the moment it's not really much. And one more thing I'd like to say is that even though this video is kind of obsolete already, I'm still posting it on the sense that it's there, it's done. From that on, that's it. We'll see you in the next video.